Hey everybody, it's Nathan Cool with NathanCoolPhoto.com, and in this tutorial I wanted to take you through a few different steps of shooting a problem room, but one that I really wanted to showcase. So it's a little bit more involved than what you'd normally have through most of the MLS type photos, but this one I wanted to take and showcase it real well. I wanted to be able to show this. It was something that the owner had remodeled. He did the work himself, and it looks very, very nice. And so it's not something I would do on every shot, but if you want a really good showcase shot, this is going to show something how to deal with shooting wood problems. This particular room had not just a wood floor, but also a wood ceiling. There were two different types of wood. There's a lot of sun that was glaring in from this also. So there was a lot of reflections coming in. There were beams, there was shadows kind of going everywhere. And of course a lot of shadows also on the floor and things because it wasn't a very well lit room normally. So I wanted to be able to showcase a lot of stuff with that. I also wanted to show not just the room itself, but the fireplace was really unique. I love this fireplace. Didn't want to turn the fire on. We've been in the middle of a heat wave in Southern California. So I did a fire replacement also. So I want to show you how to do that. And also, I don't want to distract from this room. It has a television in it, so I want to show you how to do a TV replacement that's also very subtle. Something that you're not going to show reflections coming in off the room and everything else that tends to show up on the TV, but at the same time, you're not going to show the front of the house or some other scene that all of a sudden draws the eye over to this television. But instead, we're going to focus on the main part of the room. Now, there's a lot to go through in this video. This tutorial is longer than most, so I'm going to break it apart into different ones, but don't worry, we're going to keep it all in the same one. Just have to make sure that you have to hit the pause button from time to time. This might get a little lengthy, but anyway, let's go ahead and take a look at the first step of this, which is taking a look at the actual problem that we had, what we're facing, what we're up against, and then I'll start going through all the steps it'll take to fix that. You ready? Let's go. So first off is our ambient shot, and you can see how dark this room was with the light coming in like the sun's corona over here on the left. It's already blowing out the floor, the hardwood here. You can see what's happening from the window here, blowing this wood out up here. We're even getting flare, because this right here, if you look up here on the right, that was 1/5 of a second, ISO 320. And look at the histogram. We're left of center for the most part. This is definitely underexposed. But anyways, we've got some nice detail that comes in here through the ambient. And of course, one of the nice things they put in was this light to be able to showcase their fireplace. So we're going to deal with that all in just a little bit. We've also got then a flash shot. Now, to be able to do this correctly and be able to light this evenly, what I ended up doing was using a couple different lights. Now, this is a lighting diagram here. This is really nice. You can go to lightingdiagrams.com and make these yourself. Now, it doesn't have all the furniture and everything to show what was going on in this room, but you can see from here what I did. So there's this is actually a chair, and this you can see where I am here. The TV was over here. You can see that if I just move out of the way. Window with a lot of light coming through it. So my two lights, here's my camera at the center facing toward the fireplace. I used for my main light up here, this would be my key. This is an Explorer 600 at a little over half power, and he's bouncing off a joint. And then we can see over here, this is a Yongnuo bouncing straight through on an umbrella. That also caused some problems because I angled him up just a little bit so I could try to fill in some of the wood up here, try to get the real true color off of it. That was my main goal out of that. Now, shooting at 1/25 of a second, I've got a lot of things that overcome that. And you can take a look though at how this actually looked in the room. I was doing just a real quick behind the scenes video with my cell phone, shaking just a little bit. It was the end of the shoot when I got this last shot. But you can see though how this goes. It's I've got my umbrella, I've got my camera in the middle, I've got then the Explorer 600 facing up. So when I started firing off, I've got some nice fill, some nice color that's coming in, and it's so much power at 125th of a second that I'm actually able to overcome all that ambient. So all those things that were coming through on ambient, all those things on the wood, that goes away. So there's still a problem though. My ambient is still really low, so I have to adjust that. Last thing I did was, because I had some reflections in the windows here, I could have probably gotten by with no window pulls, but I got to do them here. And that's because I've got those reflections showing up. So did 2 window pulls, one for the left side over here to get the slider and this window, and another one over here. Now to do those window pulls, I shut off the umbrella so that this guy was completely shut off, no umbrella, and then I took the Explorer off the stand and I just pointed it straight at these features to go ahead and get that window pull. So that's the problem room. That's what we're up against. Now, you can see that for the most part, really to overcome that, it's just a matter of really using a lot of flash power. But how does this get blended the whole way through? Well, in the next step, what I'd like to do is take you through the editing process and what it took to actually blend first to get a Flambient. And then later, through this video, I'm going to then take you through steps to add that punch of adding that fireplace and also something that won't distract from that television. So you're ready to edit this? Let's get started. Okay, so to edit these together, let's go ahead and take first our ambient shot. I'm going to try to correct that using the standard preset that I use, but you'll see what happens. It throws off these perspectives. This actually had a cathedral ceiling, so the verticals are really thrown off. So first thing I'm going to do is just shut off that vertical and make sure that everything looks okay. So let's shut that off. We'll keep the enable profile corrections and chromatic aberration there. And the verticals to me look pretty good. If not, what I'd have to do then of course is go into manual mode and start playing around with my verticals. My horizontals also look good when I hold a grid over it like that. So that's not looking too bad. I like that. And of course, that's the tricky part here to get a shot with a single point focus. Make sure that you're centered right on the room. I'd love to have the chair centered and everything centered, but the furniture just wasn't laid out that way. It would have looked odd because it was large furniture. We needed to have gaps between it. So anyways, the compensation was to go right down the middle here of the ceiling. That'd be the focal point right down through the fireplace. So anyways, now that I've got those settings, I'm going to go ahead and right click, develop settings, copy settings. You've seen me do this before. Instead of using sync, and I keep the white balance off and say okay. I'm going to copy those, highlight all the pictures that I want, right click, develop settings, and paste settings. Okay, now that goes ahead and makes all those changes. Now the ambient shot is still dark. If we compare that to our flash shot, you can see the histogram on the flash is pretty even, so that's pretty good exposure, but the ambient shot's a little under. So to make this blend better, I'm going to go ahead and increase the exposure. And I'm going to just take that up about a half stop. And that to me looks pretty good. And you can see where our problems are. We've definitely got this issue of the blown out ceiling, blown out floors. But anyways, this is good to start editing. So we right click, develop settings, and then we go, edit in. Sorry to mislead you there. Right click, edit in, and then open as layers in Photoshop. So this you'd probably want to align. I know that in this case when I brought these up and I was editing earlier, that the tripod really didn't move. I didn't touch the camera hardly at all doing this because once again there was only a few frames that were shot. There were other frames that obviously weren't turning out so well that I threw away and only used these for the tutorial. But for the most part, it went really quick to do this. And one of the reasons being is because I used a lot of flash power. So I'm not going to do a fast Flambient on this. I'm going to do a true Flambient so you get the whole picture here. But if you're interested in fast Flambient, it is a quick way to do this. And you can watch my other video on that. Just look on my channel for fast Flambient. Anyways, let's go ahead and change this guy to luminosity mode. And when we do that, let's take a look at the first thing that's going to happen here. If we zoom in, we can start seeing some harsh shadows. I've got questions on what do I do with this orange that's showing up. That's because we have a harsh shadow coming off the flash layer. So there's a couple fixes for that. First thing I'll do is I'm going to go ahead and duplicate that layer by going Control J. Now, I'm going to go ahead and keep this one as my luminosity layer, as my ambient. I'm going to go back down to the one below and change it to a normal mode. Okay. And then what I would do is I would go Layer, Mask, Hide. And then anywhere I'm going to be brushing that in, where I'm going to be brushing in the luminosity, I can then fix those shadows. But first off, let's back up now and go back to making this Flambient. So it's luminosity mode, we go Layer, Mask, Hide. Let's go ahead and view that in so we can actually get a good picture of it. Let's take a brush at a 10% flow and let's brush in where we want that to happen. So I'm brushing in this luminosity mode Flambient. Make sure that we get that fireplace detail in there real well. Get rid of this up here, make it more natural coming in. Want to make sure we get rid of this hot spot up here and also this harsh shadow. That was from my umbrella. That's my mistake there. I got a nasty shadow off that beam. So we'll get rid of that up there on the top. Let's make this furniture look a little bit realistic, and as we do that we can see some of those shadows starting to come in that we're going to have to go fix. Let's add some light onto the wall coming in. That was definitely more natural if we do this. And I'm not worried about the windows now hitting those as I normally would be, because I'm going to add a window pull to it. So we'll just add a little bit more onto the walls there, and maybe a little bit onto the floor and the door back here. There was a shadow on the door there. And that's starting to look real. A little bit of reflection on the wood isn't bad. It's going to make it look natural. We had a nasty flare that was up here on the top. We want to make sure that we don't get that, so we just erase that, go back into our brush. And now also to see where we are, we can just go ahead and go shift click. Is there anything that could be improved? Definitely more so up here in this corner. Get rid of that hot spot from my umbrella. So that's looking pretty good. A fairly evenly lit shot. That would be all ambient. That's just with the ambient that we have, and that would be with no ambient. So let's go in real quick and paint these areas in here with our layer that's in normal mode. And there's a lot of ways to do this. Since this is just furniture, I'm not really concerned about it. So I'm just going to go ahead and brush in some of that right there. And then it was also down here on the carpet. And to me, that's fine. Now, why didn't I just use that layer instead of in luminosity mode just as normal, since that's doing it? Well, the colors would definitely be off. And by the way, we need a little bit more ambient over here. I noticed it on the fireplace, that getting some shadow coming in over there. So I want that to look a little bit more natural. Okay, and would that look more natural with it off or on? Yeah, it's probably, I'm just taking a look here. We'd probably, yeah, with the flash, it's still just a little too much. So anyways, we'll go ahead and just fix that over here as well. So little things like that. There's also a little bit of color because of that coming in here, so we'll fix that as well. Not bad. But it would really throw in, anyways, back to my point, is that it would throw in some color casts, because you're not going to get exactly the same white balance. You're going to get a truer color off your lights. So you want to be able to use luminosity mode whenever you possibly can. So anyways, there we go for the flambient part of it. And of course, then the last thing that we would do for typical flambient like this is to do the window pull. So let me bring those up to the top. Go ahead and put that into darken mode. Layer mask hide. Select a brush, and we'll go at 100% opacity, and we'll then brush those areas in for the window here on this side, and make sure that we get rid of then that whole reflection that was showing up in there. Get that at 100% flow in there. Good. Now that's pretty good. We'll take up the other one just real quick. This was our other window pull for the other side. Change him to darken mode, and once again layer mask hide. Use our brush at 100% flow, and we've got that looking in there. So that's real good, and so far so good, but we still got a couple more steps to go. So far so good. We've done our typical flambient. Really the big fix here was just having a lot of light power, and of course using the two lights doing it, having that Explorer 600 really added a lot of light in the room. If I didn't have them, I might have to do two umbrellas coming in, but you can see how that's really all that it took to edit the wood. Now we're going to do some enhancements to that wood after we do a couple more steps in post. Once again, the next steps I want to take is what I would do to add some fire to that fireplace, make it really pop. That's a centerpiece. We want to make it look real, and we were in the middle of a heat wave in Southern California. I didn't want to turn the fireplace on. I can add it myself. Also, I don't want that television to be distracting from the rest of the room. To really showcase those beams and the wood and that fireplace over there too. So I'm going to show you a quick step on that. And then lastly, after showing that, then we're going to go back in to Lightroom and add that final punch before we export this out. So bear with me. We're still not done. Just a little more to go. You ready? Let's take it on and let's finish this puppy out. Okay, so just to recap, we've done our full flambient, we've added our window pull layers. You can see we've got a lot of stuff really going on here. But you can see there's a couple things going on. One, we don't really have that much really showcasing this fireplace, right? It's nice, it's got their light on there, but it'd be nice to have a fire in there. So let's go ahead and zoom back out and take a look at the rest of this, and also the TV over here. You know, it's got some weird reflections going on. You can see the fireplace, and yeah, that is natural, but I don't want anything to distract it. I don't want to do the typical TV replacement either that would really distract. If I had some other colorful picture in here like the outside of the house, your eye would be drawn to the right side of the room, not the center. So this guy has to be subtle, and we're going to fix both of these right now in these steps. So you might have seen me do this before on some other videos. I'm just going to come in here a little bit more. And I'm going to make a new layer. I'm going to go layer, new layer, and I'm going to call him Flame. And now I'm going to take my pen tool, which you can just hit the P key like I did, and it brings up the pen tool. And I'm going to make a little ziggy-zaggy pattern over top of those logs, and don't worry about being too accurate right now. We're going to distort all this anyways. Go up here to the top left, click on Shape. Excuse me, before you do that, go to Filter, and it'll be Render and Flame. Now with this, you've got a lot of different choices for the length, the width, the angle, interval. For this, I know that this setting is probably pretty good. It's close enough. It's not going to be exact, but don't worry about that. We can distort all this. And that's where I got ahead of myself. What I want to do now is go up here to the top left and click on Shape. Now what that does, now I've got two separate layers. I've got this shape and I've got the flame. Get rid of the shape, just delete that. Now with the flame layer, I can do anything I want with this. So I'll put it down here kind of where it probably should be. It looks like the house is going to catch on fire with that thing. So what we're going to do is go to Edit, Adjust, Distort. And with this then, I can do just about anything to fit this in here. So I'm going to go ahead, bring it down a little bit. I could have probably done this with scale as well, but this gives me a lot more options. And I'm used to doing it with using the flame replacements here for fireplaces, because I can also then change perspective on it if I'm shooting it at an angle. So, but this is pretty good for me. I like the look of that, and I think that looks about natural. Maybe we'll just bring down the height of those flames just a little bit more, something about along those lines. And so I'm happy with that. That's fine. Now, we need to go in. I'm going to view it at 100% here, zoom in just a little bit more, and I need to edit out these posts. Now in this case, it's really easy. I can just go ahead and go Layer Mask Reveal and use my square tool up here. And I'm just going to go ahead and go over those areas like this. And then just select them. And I'm not bothering to feather them. I'm just going to delete them. Once again, I've got the layer mask selected here. So I just go over those areas and I delete them. It's easy enough. Now, you really want to be accurate. Yeah, you'd want to feather this selection by about, about 1 pixel. You'd probably get a good feathering in there. I'm not really worried about it. More complex fireplaces, sometimes I have to do a color match like you would do for a sky replacement, and getting something in there. But the real trick of this is coming up once I take care of these last couple right here, and of course get this side here. So get that done. So that's fine. But the real trick to this is two things. One, reduce the fill. So get this to look natural. Now you can start seeing actually screen starting to show through that. So we'll give about 88%. The other thing is to use a low flow eraser, and I've got it down at about 10% flow, you can see up here. And I'm just going to erase some of this like off the bottom, maybe some off the sides, and that's looking good. And then one final step, and this is the tricky part. You go ahead and you grab over here one of your colors. So take the foreground color, okay, and make sure you're only sampling on this layer. We're now not on the layer mask, but we're on the flames themselves, and select a nice color in there like that orange. That's good. Now, go below the flame layer. Go down to the bottom, click on that round icon, and select solid color. Boom. Okay. Now we've got this color that we're going to turn into color mode. Then we're going to take that layer mask and we're going to invert it. Control I. Take a brush and paint in these areas here. Now it's painted in, it's not going to look real. I'm going to go even out here onto the hearth, right? So I'm at 100% on that brush there. Now I could have done it a lower flow, but if I do that, I can still reduce the fill on that, okay? Let's take a look though if we were to do it at a lower flow. And that's really simple to do. You go back and then you hit Control, excuse me, is it Control 1? Nope. Shift 1. And now I've got a 10% flow. I could have also done it by just selecting it up there, but I love using keystrokes. So anyways, you brush in what you want for that color. And this is where you would feel that color would be then coming out. Now it's behind the flames, you don't want it in front of it. And of course then we adjust our fill to make it start looking natural. Now we're going to be doing a similar thing. Let's zoom back out. That looks like some pretty good flames. Might even increase a little bit punch in the fill of the flame layer, take it up to 91%. So now let's take on the second problem during this portion of the editing phase. And we have these reflections here. So we're going to do a similar thing. We're going to go down to our base layer. We're going to select our foreground color and click someplace in here. We can start seeing it's not true black, it's some type of gray. You can see on the RGB. So we select OK. Now what we do, same thing. I'm going to go up above Flame, select that little circle down here at the bottom of the layers, go to solid color, and I'm going to leave this then as normal. And I'm going to go ahead and hide everything from him by just doing Control-I on that mask. I'm going to select my polygon tool, and I'm going to go ahead and draw a polygon around near where, boom, that TV screen is. Similar to doing any other, excuse me, delete to get that back. Similar to doing any other TV swap, is just you're drawing that rectangle around there. I'm going to go ahead and change my colors by hitting X, and you can see what happens over here on the right. If I hit X, I go back and forth, white and black, depending on how I'm going to work with that mask. And then I just hit my delete key, and boom, we've got that. Now that might still look a little dark, but if it does, you go over here, you double click on your little color icon, and you can then change the color. So there I've turned it up to a lighter gray, take it down just a tad. And then one last step with that to really make it look good, click on the layer portion, go to blending options, and then select on gradient overlay. Now this puts a light gradient on it. If I take it up 100%, you can start seeing how that'd be a lot of light coming in there. And you can adjust and play with these settings. The most important thing is the light direction, and you see that from the angle over here. The scale of it, how much gradient would be in there. You can see what happens with the scale of it. How much gradient do I want? So you can play around with that and see how much you want to have in there to make it look somewhat realistic. And to me, that's actually fine. I don't really have a problem with that. So that's looking pretty good. A little bit like that. And I'll go ahead and I'll also reduce the fill on him just to make it look a slightly bit more natural. And I'm pretty happy with that. Might go back here to the gradient overlay and just reduce the opacity on that just a tad. Okay. So now we've got that. And our last step then is to just do, I'm going to flatten it all. So I go to Layer, Flatten, Control S saves it, and now we're back into Photoshop. And now we go for our last final steps. I'm going to go ahead and add one of my bumps in here, so I'm going to add a light bump with no verticals. And that bumped it up quite a bit. Not bad looking at all. I'm going to increase though a little bit of the highlights, bring those back so you get a little bit more punch, just a little bit of the whites that are in there. And I think that is a pretty good looking shot. So we just go File, Export, and we export that out as going done, right? And when we export that out, the final product looks like this. Now I know that was a little bit long and drawn out. There's a lot of steps in there and you're looking at that going, I'm not going to do that for my real estate photos. That takes too long, and it does. There's no way for every MLS photo you could do something like that. But if you get a high-end client, you got a high-end house, or you want to really just showcase something really well, these are all the different tools that you can use. And quite honestly too, once you get used to it, it really doesn't take that long to put it together. And remember what was most important to speed things up. We only had really two images. We had an ambient shot, and then we had a flash shot, but it was flashed very well. It had a lot of light coming in on it. We did some other window pulls, for it that added that, and that really didn't take that long. Adding then, a fire replacement to it, adding a TV replacement to it, those are some added steps in there, but when you really want to go after, you want to really showcase something, take the time to really get yourself on a good single point focus. Make sure your horizontals are really good in camera. You've got everything level. If not, you can tweak a little bit of it in Lightroom, but the better you get, obviously the better it's going to, the faster it's going to go to do your edits. Anyways, I hope some of this was useful for you, that you can actually use some of this in your photography as well. If you did like this video, you can subscribe to this YouTube channel. It won't cost you anything, and as soon as one of these videos is posted, you'll be the first to know. Thanks a lot for watching. Until next time, take care, be safe, and get out there and shoot something.